And Bodger, this says, Bodger can be proud of one success as PM, 100% record of failure. He's making failure his speciality. But then he's rebranding failure as success. There's going to be all new dictionaries now. Everything that you thought was true is now have been rebranded. Like the word hospitals, for instance. Apparently it doesn't mean hospital anymore. Hospitals have been ordered by the government to describe newly built units and major refurbishments of existing NHS buildings as new hospitals.
What?
This is because Bodger came up with this lie about building 40 new hospitals. There's a clip of him. You've probably seen it on YouTube. They're sitting around that big table at the cabinet and he says, how many new hospitals are we building? And they all say, 40. You know, like they're getting their story straight before being interviewed by the police. How many? 40. Yes, that's right. And then they all went out, dutifully, told the same lie over and over again. We're building 40 new hospitals, they said. And Sajman Jav tweeted that he was going to open one of the new 40 new hospitals this week.
Liar!
No, you weren't. I can't believe it. He actually said that out. Well, he wrote it down. The evidence is in. Guilty. I'm off to open one of the 40 new hospitals this week, he said. It wasn't a new hospital, it was a ward in a hospital that already exists. You know, but they've said it so many times that people are believing it. Because that's the great benefit of repeating a lie over and over again, is because people eventually believe it. And the bigger the lie, the more likely they are to believe it. Because in the back of your mind, you think, well, they wouldn't lie to me about a thing like that, would they? They wouldn't be so barefaced as to go on TV and just spout lies about something as important as that, would they? No, so it must be true. But people believe it despite their knowledge of the relationship that this regime has with the truth. Over and over and over again, they've proved that they have a scant relationship with the truth. And people continue to believe their every word. Oh, well, I know they lied to me about this, and then they lied to me about that, and they lied to me about the other thing, but they're bound not to be lying to me about this. And as 40 new hospitals, 40 is not a hard number to count to, unlike 20,000 new police officers, for instance, very difficult number to count, because as soon as you start counting, they start moving about, and you lose count. Just stand still. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can count 40. And, by the way, on that 20,000 new police officers, which is another one of those non-facts they went around the table repeating, like they were in junior school. How many new police officers are we having? 20,000, that's right. And so they all go and spout this nonsense on television, and some nodding journo will just let them get away with it. Here's the news. You cannot have 20,000 new police officers until you replace the 21,000 that the Tories have cut since they've been in office. If I take £10 from you and I give you £1 back, I haven't given you £1. I've taken 9. So those 40 new hospitals are going to be hard to find as they don't exist. I mean, they were never going to exist. It's just one of those things that Bodge blurts out to get a positive response from the people that he's addressing. Unfortunately for them, they wrote it down in their manifesto. Fortunately for them, nobody ever reads a manifesto. So, it's also very, what would Donald Trump do? We're still living in Donald Trump's world, but we are in this country. What would Donald Trump do? He'd lie his face off, and by the time you fact-checked him, he'd have told another 50 lies. So instead of actually building 40 new hospitals, they are changing the definition of the word hospital.
Oh, fabulous.
It's priceless. That's what they're doing. They're changing the definition of the word hospital so that they can announce that they have actually did what they said they were going to do and build 40 new hospitals. Instead of building 40 new hospitals, they're changing the definition of the word hospital. Can you believe that? A communications playbook for the government's new hospitals programme makes clear what ministers would define as a new hospital. And by playbook, it means please learn this by rote, and you must spew this out when you're on TV on when we wheel you out one by one to face some beige inquisitor. And by beige, I don't mean the colour of their skin, I mean just bland. Who will act all deferential and allow them to get away with absolutely anything. Apart from that woman on Sky. Apart from her. But even she doesn't get much out of them. They just sit there and they go, blah, 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 blah. Well, of course, 20% more of this and 100,000 more of that. And then time's up and they sail off into the sunset. But you know me, I never complain.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
So instead of actually building 40 new hospitals, they're changing the definition of the word hospital. Can you believe that?
Yes.
This communications playbook for the government's new hospitals programme makes clear what ministers would define as a new hospital, which is not what you would define as a new hospital. And it also encourages NHS trusts to press home the pledge to build the new hospitals by the end of the decade. So the NHS now is being repurposed as a government propaganda machine. A leaked document. The only way we know about this is because some concerned citizen leaked this document. It was obtained by Health Service Journal. It was sent to NHS trusts this month, titled New Hospital Programme Communications Playbook. Wow, how sinister does that sound? Playbook. It's a game. We'll discombobulate you with a lot of spurious statistics and verbiage that doesn't quite sink in first time around, and then we'll spirit ourselves away and you'll just be left in a whirlpool of confusion. Talking about a whirlpool of confusion.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
There he is, right there. A communications playbook. How to respond when asked. How to game your way out of a corner when pressed by a journalist. It might as well have been titled. According to the Health Service Journal, this playbook said, the schemes named in the announcement are not all identical and vary across a number of factors. However, they do all satisfy the criteria we set of what a new hospital is, so must always be referred to as a new hospital, even if they aren't. Get that? They are not identical and vary across a number of factors. In other words, they're not anything like a new hospital, but they satisfy the criteria of what the government says is the definition of the word hospital. Are we stunned yet? I am. Have you ever seen anything like it in all your life? They satisfy the criteria we set of what a new hospital is. They're changing the language to suit themselves now. Under the definitions of a new hospital, the document stated that this can include a major new clinical building on an existing site or a new wing of an existing hospital, provided it contains a whole clinical service, such as maternity or children's services, or a major refurbishment or alteration of all but the building frame or main structure, delivering a significant extension to useful life, which includes major or visible changes to the external structure. It could also be the provision of a cigarette butt receptacle or a portaloo in the waiting room, and the outside gets a lick of paint. So back with the story about this fantastical tale about the 40 hospitals. Nuffield Trust Director of Strategy Helen Buckingham told the HSJ, the Health Service Journal, probably. She said, stretching the definition of a new hospital to cover all these initiatives is not going to convince the average patient or taxpayer and might lead to a poor reception for what are actually much needed local improvements. Correctamundo, Helen. See, if people are expecting a new hospital because that's what they voted for, and it turns out there's just a small extension to the hospital that's already there, then those people might get the idea that they've been had. And that would cause them loss of face. So they will never admit to being had and will bend themselves into pretzel shapes, trying to convince everyone, including themselves, that that's what they voted for.
Fabulous.
Or they'll engage in an orgy of whataboutism. Well, what about Jeremy Corbyn? He didn't know. I've had that already. He didn't open any hospitals when he was Prime Minister. Why didn't he open any hospitals when he was Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn? What about him? And when quizzed about this, the Department of Health and Social Security said, "We have committed to build 40 hospitals by 2030, backed by an initial £3.7 billion. That ain't going to get you nothing. That won't get you a car park. That'll get you a tenth of an app for your phone that won't work." Each of the hospital building projects will be new hospitals delivering brand new state-of-the-art facilities to world-class provision of healthcare for NHS patients and staff by replacing outdated infrastructure. Okay, everything about that's wrong. It's like British exceptionalism. It's world-beating. The entire world will be looking on us in envy when we create 40 new hospitals out of the dust, spending absolutely no money whatsoever because they don't actually exist. Only we can do this because we're British, damn it. They said it's not uncommon for existing hospital sites to accommodate multiple hospitals, and there are numerous hospitals which specialise in one area of care and are co-located. They are all nonetheless hospitals. No, they're not. They're wings and they're wards and they're clinics. You don't get to call every room in a hospital a hospital. They said, we have issued guidance to trusts in the programme to support communications around the plans for their schemes, which is standard practice. No, it isn't. Forcing people in the NHS to lie to make the government's promises become a reality like they're waving a magic wand. Standard practice. Well, it is under this regime. God, what a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
I am stunned.